Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes, to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together.
Hey, leader. Welcome back to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast. I am so excited to have with us today Cathy Tam. Cathy is an amazing client of mine, and I just love diving deep with her when we talk about finances, and not just finances, but generational finances. And through the things that Cathy has taught me, even as a client of mine, and the deep discussions that her and I've had, and me also witnessing her passion for standing for generational wealth and for people to really tackle their beliefs around their wealth and what they're able to create. I really want to bring Cathy here today to really share with you not only her passion, but a few insights that might support you in really being able to maximize your generational wealth and look at the thoughts and the beliefs between your two ears, right? As we often talk on this podcast about, the neuroscience of your wealth, and hoping that you walk away today with some great tips and tricks to really help you, reach that next level of wealth in 2026. So Cathy, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here with us today.
I'm so happy to be here and honored.
So Cathy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and where this passion for wealth and finance and creating, generational wealth came from based on your journey and experience?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was not something that I went to school for. It was not something I was planning. It's kind of life, life takes you on this journey. And what happened with me is dealing with everyday lives, and in particular, finishing college, and then having that bit of debt to deal with, getting married, having my first child, and then finding out that my first child had some challenges, right? Which is something that, most people don't expect. But with those challenges come financial demands that I wasn't ready for. Didn't expect it. And that's what really started me down that journey of, okay, how am I going to get the resources for my child that I want to have for him and be able to pay for this? That's what got me into finance, because my background and degree is not in finance. It's actually in psychology and history. So that's what brings me now, 40, 50 years later, to being in finance and working with families that not necessarily are in that situation that I have, although many of my clients do have special people in their lives, or they have doesn't have to be really someone special, someone who needs maybe special care. Parents that are getting older, right? And although we know that they're going to get older, we don't necessarily plan for the financial responsibility that comes that way sometimes, right? And then all of a sudden it kind of hits you and you go, okay, I didn't budget for this. How do I handle this? So that's where I come in. That's why I think finance is very interesting. When you think about it, right? When we think about it, or when we say that word finance, the first thing we think of it is money. How much money do I have, right? And how do I make this money grow, right? Nothing wrong with that, but I would like to ask you to think about, what do you actually plan to do with this resource? Because money is just a resource, right? And most of us, I have yet to meet somebody who makes money just to make money. Usually there's some reason, right, behind, well, I want this money because I want to do this, or I want to buy this, right? So I ask you to put idea behind what it is that you want the money to do for you. And then it kind of steers you in the direction that you need to go anyway. When you're just targeting the money, like, okay, I want 50,000 or 100,000, when you're just targeting the number itself, there's a tendency not to hold on to it because it's just a number, right? But if it's a goal towards something, then there's a tendency for you to actually reach that goal. So that's one of the things that I deal with families when they are in situations like that. If they're just starting out and they're just looking at making the money make money, just fine. But I always ask behind that, but what do you plan to make or do with this money when you get it? Yeah, because I do, coach in the high schools and colleges, and that's what all the young people are saying because that's what they're taught. It's like you should go out there and make money, right? That's why you're spending all this time in school, but they don't know what it's for.
Right.
They haven't thought about, well, what am I making this money for? The basic things, living well and stuff, but no, it needs to go beyond that. What are you really making that money for, right?
I
And
feel
then yeah,
that emotional driver is what I'm kind of hearing you say.
yes.
Look at the neuroscience of wealth. We're looking at emotional drivers and also the beliefs and the thoughts. And so, yeah, what I'm hearing you say is like it's going a layer deeper, right? And Carol and I always talk about the 7 layers why of like what is the emotional driver behind that? You can see, and notice a lot of times with social media, there's always like numbers and promises and coaches and people out there, and I'll help you make this next 100,000, and I'll help you get this, and I'll help you get that. But it's like when you strip down the layers to what it is that we actually want and need, I think it supports us in getting some more clarity. But a lot of times it's like, I feel like there's this like external pressure that often comes with reaching these financial milestones. And I don't know if you notice that too, Cathy, in the conversations you have. And I'm actually even more curious in the teenagers, right? Like, where is it coming from for them to help create that driver, and why are they maybe so interested at even a young age to want to learn more about that? And also curious, like on a third angle of like maybe what can we learn based off the questions that a lot of the youth are asking today that maybe we are not asking, especially with AI, especially in the changes of the world of today. I'm curious about that. I realized it was like 3 questions there, and I don't, Carol, if you have any other ones to add in there, but it kind of really that curiosity around specifically the youth, and what are some lessons on them?
That would be awesome. Kathy, it's so nice to meet you. Sorry I'm
Hi,
jumping
Carol.
in late. I had a little Wi-Fi issue here
That happened.
at my place down in the Andes Mountains in southern Chile, and um, we've had some weather. So
Ah,
one of the things you were addressing was that money is a measurement of value. It's a reflection of value. And I think, putting it in the other direction of, it's not just the money, it's what do you want to do, what's driving you, what's your why. I really appreciate the fact that, looking at it from another direction, another perspective. Um, with my own clients, we come at it from, it's not about the money. The money is just a system of barter. It's just a measurement of the value. And so what's the value we're putting out there? What are we doing? So I like that very much. And I agree with Alex. I'd love to know, like, with the questions that she's asking, what are you seeing with the youth? What are you seeing with their perspective on these things? And I look forward to learning.
well, I love to share. I love working with the youth because they have such great ideas. Um, well, the two things I would say that I see with the young people today is part of it is they're so bombarded with this identity that comes
Yeah,
with the money, right? And this push for them to fit into that identity, which
yeah,
makes them very, very nervous. On the other hand, because it's really not really defined, you're just supposed to be well off
yeah,
whatever that is, right? Or comfortable, whatever that is. However, what really makes me excited and when we get to stop and talk about what do you want this money to do for you, is how passionate they are about serving, about being in
Mhm.
service. They do not want a job just to make a lot of money,
Mhm.
or even to buy a lot of things, which is what media is saying that young people want. They want the fancy this and that. No, that's not what I'm hearing. As a matter of fact, many of them go into corporate and they're out of it, like 5 years, and they're already like very unhappy and disillusioned, even though they were making good money. On
Yeah.
the other side, they're also, some of them are not making good money. And that's also kind of like a reality check for them, right? But for in both instances, regardless of how much they're making, they're struggling with the same thing. It's this identity. If I connect the identity only to how much I make, um, I don't know what to do with it. The one that doesn't make enough, they could say, well, I don't make enough. And they may go down the road of, I need to make more. And then my identity will be okay. But because we're in a group, those young ones who are making the money say, no, 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 that's not the answer either. We're making good money. We're very unhappy. I quit my job, right? I couldn't stand it. So they are looking for a purpose. And the
Purpose.
purpose is
Yeah.
not how many zeros do I have after that dollar sign, right? And so that's why I'm so excited to work with them, because they see it way before my generation saw it, right? And it also could be
Mhm.
with the fact that there is so much opportunity, which is nice, right?
Yeah.
Out there, they can see it, like you see on the internet, just get in here and be like a social butterfly, you'll be making millions or something, right? There's
Yeah.
always a new something out there you can get rich quick scheme, right? And yeah, and there's so much with social media bombarding you, and they're thinking, well, why am I not doing this? Why am I behind? For what reason? What makes me, less than, right? So there's more, I think there's more push on this generation to, to prove themselves than ever before.
Yeah.
And I would say specifically for women. Okay, it is actually, it's quite hard for men too, because the identity of the man being the breadwinner is still out there, even with our
Yeah.
young people. They're really, really down on themselves if they feel like they can't bring in the dough. For the women, you're kind of struggling with also, not only that, but also trying to be the breadwinner, right? A new identity that we're stepping into, whereas before, my generation anyway, well, you're supposed to stay home, take care of the family. You that good, that you got a good identity there, right?
Yeah.
But in today's state, the woman has to juggle both now, right? Not
Yeah.
only do you have to be the awesome mom, right? And be there for them, but you have to be this awesome employee or employer if you're running your own business too.
Yeah.
And what does that look like for them in terms of
A
identity? And
lot.
if we're only measuring it by money, well, then what is that number? That means that, okay, I've made it. I'm where I should be. So there's a lot out there for these young people to try to, kind of figure out. It,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's
It
what we
is.
need to deal with.
It's like, how do you help them filter all those opportunities? Because, it is a lot to process.
It is. Well, I stopped them for a minute when they're in my workshop, because the one that I did in December was boot camp for entrepreneurs. Do you want to run your own business? Me. And so when I come in, they have these ideas, and it's all related to numbers. And I said, well, let's stop on the numbers for a minute. If you had your ideal job or wish or career, what is it? What would you like? Right? And then bring that back, because we kind of take it away when you put the numbers in front of it, kind of takes the fun out of it. uh, right? So you put it in, because sometimes you go, well, I want to do this, but I can't afford it, right? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. So if we take the numbers away, what would you like to do? Right? And then for these young people, they come right at, oh, this is what I was, looking at. This is why I went to college. And I said, well, why did you give up on it? Right? Is it
Yeah.
only because you don't know how to monetize it? That's what I can teach you. I can't teach you
Mm.
what inspires you, what your
Yeah,
passion is, but I can show you how to monetize it. Okay.
I love
That's all
that.
you need, right? But you need to start with what is the passion? What's the drive? And the drive
Mm.
is not to make X number of dollars. That's never
Yeah,
the drive, right?
yeah, it's never the real issue. It's the reflection of the real issue, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
I
So
think
And
that, yes,
those,
that's the best way for me to get the young people to stop thinking of money as a thing out there. You
yeah,
know, yeah,
yeah.
it is. Like I said, it's something you create. It's not an unlimited resource. I mean, it is an unlimited resource. But how do you create it? You get to decide how you're going to manifest
Mm,
money. Money
yeah.
doesn't dictate how you manifest.
yeah. How do you, so of course my lens always, with this parent hat on, right? Based on a lot of conversations that you and I have had, Cathy, and I know Carol and myself as well, is how do we now change this because our money beliefs are generational patterns. So
Yeah.
what you're saying, Cathy, I mean, you're working with, our next generation right now. But what about those with our little ones in the home? What does that look like to change those conversations to empower? Like, I think that's a lot of what's also coming up for me and what you're sharing is we empower our young ones when it comes to money, right? Like I noticed even with my little one, like she doesn't really understand the concept, right? You kind of just right like I think what it made me realize is like no one's really born with a concept of understanding of money, right? It's going to come through conversations in the home around money and what you hear around money and the thoughts and beliefs that are coming from your parents around money, right? So I know that I personally am always very mindful of that. And I know there's an
Yeah.
opportunity to start to build some of this money mindset, positive money mindset, positive wealth mindset from a young age. Because as we know, right, even with my book Free to Be Me, it is about raising our next generation. So these beliefs and thought patterns, what do we do as the adult now, right? Whether we're in leadership with our colleagues, whether we're at home with our children, or even with our teens and young adults, or even with our older, parents, where can we go to start really changing the story around how we're talking about wealth or how we're talking about
Yeah.
finance and things like that to again it's to keep that empowerment piece going through our families.
Mhm. That's great. That's a great question. When they're young, especially when they're young, they have all these ideas. They want to create things. We don't really have to, encourage them to do that. It comes out naturally. It's the monetizing piece, right? Adding that on top of it. And it's not as hard as we think it is because when you're little, like you just get stuff. You want it, mom and dad brings it in somehow, right? It just comes out. And my son, when he was little, when we had a dog, he just mentioned something. He said, "Do you think the dog thinks that the refrigerator just has food and it just comes out? Because we open it and there's always food there." I mean, it's things like that. Like you don't think about it, but
Yeah.
okay, yeah, your kids just like the things just kind of show up, right? So in order to teach them, I think in order to teach anyone really is make it fun, make it
Yeah.
like a little game. So what I do for the younger individuals that we work with is we have like you can do this with just three buckets or three containers, okay, three paper cups even, right? And if they have some money, if they've done something and they've earned money, if you want to go that way, right? Did a little chore, you gave them $1, right? And then you teach them what to do with that dollar. It's great that you taught them to how you get this resource because you do something and then you get something, right? You get money. So that's the first thing you teach them about how this money thing works, right? So I clean my room, I get $1, right? Don't just give them $1 and say, okay, now go do whatever with your dollar, right? Teach them right from the beginning, have three sources, and I say, okay, one is for you to spend, and you can dictate how much, or you can let them divvy up how they're going to break up this dollar. So one bucket is for you to spend right now. One bucket is for you to save for future, and one is for you to give. to give to someone else or something else that you care about, right?
Mhm.
And immediately you're teaching them how money works. This is exactly what we do as we grow up too, just
Yeah.
on a bigger scale. That's the
Mhm.
best way because it's a game, right? And if you got multiple children, they may compete after each other and see how much they can afford, right?
Give stickers, right? And
How do you,
Right. But if you're teaching money, use money.
so how do you incorporate, because I think this is a lot of like a lot of the growing up is that you trained your time for money, right? And a lot about what, Carol and I speak a lot about is like making your money work for you. So in that concept, that makes a lot of sense, right? You have your three buckets. You see, you've got the giving and generosity, which is, I mean, so beautiful to start from such a young age. You have the investment piece to understand how you can see how your money can multiply. But what I
yeah.
always think about is how how do we change the relationship between we're not just working, right? We are exchanging time for money, if that kind of makes sense for them for and anybody. I think this is a whole thing. Like we're, you go through school, you're kind of dictated by a schedule, and then you go to university and you're dictated by a schedule, and you go to work and you're dictated by a schedule, and then you become an entrepreneur, as many of our listeners. And now, I
And
mean,
you go, ah!
you go kind of in the box like that 9 to 5 and this is how it looks,
Uh,
but then the reality of entrepreneurship is that's not also the reality, and then you have this cognitive dissonance, right, between this is how I know how to function, this is what is safe. But to really break through that next level of finances is to have your money work for you, right, and to understand investment, understand the relationship with money. But how do you bust out of that, the box of trading time for money, right? Like, and I
mhm.
go back to, yeah, again, how do we model that in our young children, in our youth? Because I still think that is so much part of society as we really still understand that. And again, with AI and technology changing, that is breaking the boundaries there, but still so many of us still kind of, that's what we understood, that, right? We go to work, we work really hard, then there's an exchange of money. But really, as I know I've learned the last couple of years, thanks to Carol supporting me and understanding this, it's not about working harder that's going to help you make money. You get to work smarter, get to be more strategic. You do get to
Get to
have,
multiply.
yeah, and multiply on that. So I'm curious in that lens, because I imagine you probably encountered that a lot in really busting through the abundance piece, right? And really being able to follow your passion when you sort of have it drilled into your subconscious from generation after generation after generation, this sort of like time finance, sort of exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point. And one of the reasons why I want to work with young people, because they're coming out with this intense feeling that they need to make a lot of money. So they need to sacrifice all their time. And
Yeah.
maybe all their time now, maybe they're kind of making a deal. I'm going to sacrifice it now when I'm 20, 30 or whatever. And then I'm going to get it back somehow. I'll get my time back when I'm 50 or 60, right?
Yeah.
And one of the conversations we have is we don't actually know how much time we have. That's not something we can control. And so that it is important that you have some, of that experience that you're looking forward to now, right? And that's something that our young people are very receptive to. My generation was no, work and then wait until you retire, right? Then you can live, right? But these young people are already saying, no, I'm not willing to do that. I want a life now. I want to feel
Yeah.
my purpose now. So that's a good thing. Reining it all the way back to young people, really young, 6, 7, or even 10 years old. One thing that we need to understand that I think innately the kids know the value of purpose. So the charity thing is not necessarily forced. It is part of their nature anyway.
Yeah.
And it's part of what they enjoy the most.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so that that exercise is not only about producing money for yourself, but also even in that charitable one is giving you that time space back,
Yeah.
right? That a little bit of that. I know you have to kind of extend that a little bit, but when we move, first we have to move to understanding how you actively produce money. Like you said, you exchange time, labor, and you get something called money, right? So that's the first concept, so that things just don't show up, right? Like, I need something, ask mom and dad, right? They begin to understand how money works. Then, like you said, step two is, okay, I'm working, I understand I work, I get money, I work, I get money. But there's something else you can do. You can make your money work too. It doesn't just have to sit in those cups, right? We can make the money work. How do we do that? And then sometimes you have some really, you just know these kids are going to grow up to be entrepreneurs because they figure, oh, I can get $1 because I mowed the lawn. What if I hired my friend to mow the lawn and I gave them 50 cents and I got 50 cents? I don't even have to do the work. Or we could mow two lawns or something like that. They'll
Yeah.
start coming up with ways
With
to make
creative
their
ideas.
money grow. Exactly. Yeah. And if they don't, that's fine. It grows to a certain point. You can help them a little bit. And that's where you like take the money to the bank and then, put it in a savings account. And now the money is working for you, right? Instead of that dollar sitting there, it's now $1 and maybe 10 cents. It grew. Said,
Yeah.
oh, right. So then they begin to realize, okay, if I earn another dollar, I put it in. Now it's $2.20, right? So my money's growing. So we can help them along, but a lot of the times you'd be surprised the kids will come up with ways. Because, like I said, if there's competition and things, maybe they're trying to figure out a way to beat, big sister or something, right? Let me see how I can make more money. And they might just figure out it's not just the only thing I can do is exchange my time for money. But maybe there's ways that I can make the money somehow work for itself or invest in people to
Yeah.
produce the money, the extra money. And so it's not just my labor, but my labor and other people's labor,
My
right?
mind
And they
is
learn how to,
blown. I will say, like, I'm hearing expansion, and it's like all the things that you're talking about, Cathy, in what, we hear a lot of like entrepreneur books. I'm in the process of listening to 4 Hour Work Week. And I know, Carol, you have read that recently as well. Everything you're sharing about is literally what they're talking about in this book, right? Because it is breaking out of this mold that many of us have been raised with. And again, it's generational. And what you're introducing, and this is what's beautiful because it can be done at any age. And we know it's powerful to obviously, raise our little ones like this too, is this we just start to look at it and start to question it, right? The quality of our question determines the quality of our life. So if we start to change the way we're questioning things about how we use our time, how we're seeing how our money is multiplying and thinking like that, which I know this is what Karen and I love to talk about on this podcast, is again getting like supporting that. And what I'm hearing is like there's so much more happiness and there's so much more passion. And it's not the money that's created that. It's this funness that comes with it. And I'm also hearing a lot of trial and error. It's like a lot of trial and error to see what works and what doesn't work. This builds resilience in our children, in our teenagers, in our young adults, in us too, right?
Yeah.
We build that back. And when I'm hearing it's a game, right? I think a lot of times it's like this way or that way. It's like, no, you get to embrace this. You get to look at expansion and lead with curiosity, which I think is so powerful because these are very powerful foundations when we look at leadership and growth and parenting to change the relationship when it comes to finances and wealth. So I know that that's a lot what's landing for me and Cathy, so I really appreciate this. Carol, I'm curious for you, like what's coming up. I mean, I know you've got the clients, you've got now grandchildren and your children, and just with your expertise, I'm really curious for you, Carol, like
Well,
coming to
one
you.
of the things I really appreciate about what you just said, Kathy, is um, that, thinking about brain development from a neuroscience perspective of where a child is developmentally. And so being very practical in the beginning is what I heard you say, like, letting kind of teaching them that foundation of, oh, there's an exchange here. There's a time exchange or a value exchange. If I go clean the room, then I receive this. And I think that's important for us as parents and grandparents to understand is like, doing what's appropriate at each stage and each level. But then you gave this beautiful practical example of ways that a child can get creative and think about mowing lawns. I had a little guy who lived next door to me years ago, and he got in trouble from his dad. And I said, no, I took his dad aside privately. I said, no, don't punish him. This is
Mm,
entrepreneurialism. He was wanting to sell me leaves, and he had a handful of leaves for a quarter, and I was like, yes, I'd love to buy your leaves. Thank you so much. You know, but they come up with these wonderful creative ideas. And today with my clients, what we did was in terms of creativity and expansion was I said, write 10 ways to make $100,000 in 1 hour. And, that's a part of that kind of exercise where we are expanding what we may be thinking in terms of what we may think is possible. And then we're actually providing ourselves with evidence that that's possible. Oh, yeah, there's these ways. This is happening right now. I can do this, right? And so I felt like you were really leaning into those things and touching on those things and appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, the beauty is that they come up with these ideas that nobody's ever thought of, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I teach what I teach, because I can give you the tools, or, the house. I can show you the house, but you got to come up with the ideas, that is relevant for today, right? And they have such wonderful ideas, but as a society, maybe as parents, we're not taught to support those ideas. We immediately think of, oh, that's gonna be, here's all these challenges, and you're gonna need so much to get started and all these things, and we kind of,
Yeah.
poo-poo the idea. If we could just sit with the idea, and see the excitement of, oh, okay, so how do we get started? I mean, you have this great idea, right? Like you said, I want to be a millionaire. Oh, that's great. Most people will say, oh, yeah, but that takes a lot of work, right? Just kind of
Yeah.
knocking it down right away. But no, let's say, okay, so, how do you want to do that? Where do you want to start? We can go down that road. And then even if you never make it to the millionaire, you're going to make it a lot farther than if we don't even look at it and see what we can do, right? So that's part of what I would like to see parents start embracing rather than looking at. And I know it's meant well. It's that you don't
Yeah.
want them to struggle and fail and all that. But we're not helping them by saying, I don't think
Right.
that's possible. That's going to be too much work. There's too many obstacles for you to overcome, because they're not thinking that. They're just
Yeah.
thinking, this is what I want to create. And so let's stay with that. Let's say, okay, they want to create that. And it may change, it may evolve, and they may not end up actually doing that, but they will be doing something because they'll be in creation mode.
I can think of times when, I presented ideas to family members, for example, and it was, oh no, that's way too risky. You can't do that.
Mhm.
And, we have this negativity bias where when you give us 10 things, we're going to look at nine of them through a negative lens. And I think speaking directly to about children and to parents, be aware that's going to come up for you. Those limiting beliefs are going to come out when you hear these creative ideas. And like you said, taking a step back and being open. Oh, let's think about this idea. I love that, right? Because it speaks into the neuroscience side of our money stories and our wealth and um, opening up that creativity and that possibility for them and allowing an idea to flourish without all those voices going, can't do that, can't do that.
Yeah,
It's not possible.
yeah, and stop jumping the gun. Like, okay, I'm going to be a millionaire tomorrow. No, okay, but where would you like to start? right? Rather than just stopping the conversation completely,
Yeah.
right? And that's the thing, that's some of the work that I have to do with these young people who had these ideas, been told they can't do it, bumped up to their first obstacle and said, oh, you know what? They're right. I can't do it. Right. And that's not true. However, it isn't overnight, and you have to decide, clearly what you want to do and what's the first step that you want to take in doing that. Right. So it's really exciting because they're very quick. They heal very quickly from all this damage, right? Because they're immediately going, yeah, I'm excited. And I said, I'm excited for you too. It takes longer for when I'm working with people who have been, maybe pummeled a lot more, and they lose that excitement when they're in their 50s and 60s and they've been, experiencing a lot of quote
Mm.
unquote failures, right? And I go, well, no, and many of them say, well, I'm 50, it's too late. I said, it's never too late. It's never too late.
It is
What do
never
you
too
want?
late.
Yeah. What do you want? We can start right now. I think that's the most important thing. And that's where the young people like bring that up in me because they have so much that they want to offer. There's so much they want to create. And our society is putting a dollar value on it right off the bat, right? And,
Yeah.
I'd like to eliminate that in the beginning because the money will come
Hmm.
once you do what you're passionate about doing, right? And even the money that you need to do what you want to do will come,
Yeah.
right? So let's not worry about this. What do you want first? What do you want to do? At any age, but for the younger people, especially, I think if we can nurture that right from the beginning, they'll be more able to trust in themselves and
Yeah.
and stating what they want. I mean, just even saying, I want to do this.
Yeah.
We don't even hear that very much. It's more of, well, what do you want me to say? What should I be
Mhm.
doing? Right? Rather than what do you really want to do? And I do hear that a lot. I hear a lot like, I want to do this, but it doesn't make money. So I can't do it. Right.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, who said doesn't make money?
Yeah.
So just before we wrap up here today, Cathy, I'm going through, as we're like my teacher had on like financial literacy, right? Because that's a big thing. You hear a lot more like they wish they taught this more in school. Like we wish our next generation were more financial literate. What
Yeah.
would you say would be, I don't know, the top 3 or 5 things that you would love, the leader who's listening today, whether it would impact them or someone in their life to think about this
Yeah.
financial literacy that would really, really support them in really breaking through in 2026 to that next level in their finances and their wealth, and to have
Yeah.
that confidence in those key things that you feel are maybe missed over, but that it's really like it's. I mean, I think we always say it's actually really easy to make money, right? It's really the thoughts and our beliefs that really hold us back.
Yeah.
So, what are some of those things that you would like to leave our leader who's listening today with?
So I just wanted to wrap up our conversation and then I'll go into what can you do. When I say creative ability, I'm not leaving out the special people that we have, our special needs individuals, which I happen to have one. Those on the spectrum, they
Yeah.
tend to be told even more what they cannot do. And that is
Yes.
not true at
Mm.
all. Some of them are just amazing with what they can come up with because they can see what others, quote unquote, normally cannot see. With that, how do you treat special and what we can call, normal
Yeah.
individuals? Same thing. You got to get yourself a little bit educated because we are scared of money because we don't quite understand how it works. It's not as complicated as we think it is. And the company that I work with, which I'm so passionate about, they go around educating people on personal finance, not the macroeconomics kind of stuff. Okay, what the
Yeah.
day-to-day stuff that everybody has to deal with, and they have a series of textbooks. Which I shared with you, Alex, right? Not difficult to read at all. Eighth grader, I bet you could share it with your kids. They could get the concept. It's cute. It's got characters,
Mm.
and it teaches some of the basics. I
making
would
it
say
fun.
first thing, you got to build a foundation. Understand how money works basically in our system, and it'll take the fear away from it.
Yeah,
That's really where you begin. We also, if you want to get a series of the books, I can get it to you for free.
awesome.
We also have a quiz, which we would love you all to take. It takes about like 10 minutes. It's not difficult. We're trying to gather data to see where are the majority of the people are getting hung up at certain generations, because it's generationally different, and
Mm.
how we can produce the material that will help you with understanding and managing your money properly. So that's where I would start, financial education.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's so beautiful. I mean, really, it's that place where we get to be unleashed and unstoppable, right? And are there any final words you would say on being financially unleashed and unstoppable for our audience?
I would say that my passion is to help families make friends with their money. Because so
Yeah.
many of them are afraid of it, and you don't realize that it's a really good friend that wants to help you, right?
Mm,
You don't have to fear it. That would be
yeah.
what I would want to leave as my message.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Such a powerful set of information, lessons that you've given us, and beautiful ways of changing our perspective and being able to provide for our children a good foundation, where, we can look at things and go, who put these limits on us? Who told us that we couldn't monetize these things and move forward? So this has been invaluable, and we appreciate you for being here so much. And we can't wait to see you guys next week. Ciao for now.
Bye. Thanks, Cathy. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexander Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.